Chapter 3 The Truth Be Told. The small shack that was a giant monster quickly became a small room. It was a dark room. As my eyes adjusted, I could now see a small table in the center of that room. There was just enough room for one person to walk the table. Off to the right, there was a small brick fireplace with a cauldron hanging over it. My first thought was how small the shack was. I had forts bigger than this. To give you more perspective, the living room was smaller than a king-size bed. The kitchen, off to the left of the doorway, was just a sink with no counter space. A fridge, much older and smaller than the one we had at our home. A wall separated the kitchen and bedroom. The small opening that led to the bedroom had a cast iron twin bed with a patch quilt blanket visible when sitting at the table. I remember watching the old lady look at me while my eyes wandered about her home. If her eyes could speak, they would have said, "Stop being nosy, child." So, I did what I usually do when I don't know what else to do. I put my head down while they continued with their grown-up talk. As my feet dangled from the bench, I watched my shoes go back and forth and stared at the hole in the wood planks that were fashioned to be floors. I could hear the popping of the fire. I always had a fascination for fire. Not the kind of fascination some kids have where they burn down houses, mind you. Just enjoyed the unbridled rhythm of the chemical reaction taking place. After staring at that fire, I found myself etching my head up to be taller, attempting to see what was cooking in the cauldron. It did not look or smell like food. It looked moldy. I think it's funny that instinctively as humans we still have some connection to our animal instincts. Like when something in our brain tells us to not breathe or put something in our mouth. Or if we do, anyway, our body makes us throw it up. I remember that feeling that came over me when I realized it was not food. I naturally jerked away. Then my ears focused back long enough to hear. "So after the child was born, he left you, like I said he would." Then I heard my mama say, "Yes, but you did not tell me why he would, or that I would have a second son." The funny thing I remember was Mama was not speaking in grown-up code. You know, like when grown-ups start talking and then stop and start spelling out words so you can't understand them. She was just having an all-out conversation with this old lady. Not trying to hide anything. I picked up a lot more than I think she was expecting with her complaining about Dad leaving and this other woman. Mama should have known better than talking in front of me like this. I was walking and talking at 6 months and potty trained before I was 1. I was told by my mama's mama, whose name is Joan, that I was the smartest kid around because I could walk, talk, and got to the toilet on my own. As long as I could remember, her name was Joan. Because we were not allowed to call her Granny. Granny was for old people, she said. Joan made it clear she was not an old lady. Now, some people used to tell me all these things made me smart. The truth is, my mama was not really there. It seems as if something in my little baby brain knew if I was going to survive, I needed to get up off my dirty diaper, get moving, then say what I was thinking. At this time in my life, I was 4, going on 5 years old. I remembered I loved saying going on. Every year, I was going on to something bigger and better. Like I said earlier, I used to get lost in books so I could read and write really well. If my mama had a grown-up conversation in front of me and started to spell something out, I remember looking at her with a head tilt. She thought she was so smart, getting something past me, but the head tilt was my way of saying, "Really, Mama? I know what you're talking about, and you misspelled one of those words." Well, Going back to the old lady and my mama's conversation, it seemed the old lady knew a lot about my daddy. I thought my mama said she was just a little girl the last time she saw this old lady, but it sounded like she saw this old lady when she got older too. I don't understand how she remembered so much. The old lady started talking all funny again. Then she pulled out some cards with cartoons on them. I remember looking at them. She told my mama a lot of stuff. I did not pay it no mind. I was too busy looking at the pictures on the cards. I like to draw, and I like to look at and study the lines and pictures. I had never seen pictures like this before, but it kind of looked like pictures in our family Bible that was almost as big as the coffee table. If you know what I'm talking about, you had one too. Then it was my turn. She took the large cards and spread them out across the table. Then she said, "What is your favorite number, child?" I replied hastily, 7. I was so excited. I liked games. It was not like I was old enough to know that 7 was a lucky number by many, or that my social security number that gave my mama big tax breaks every year had a lot of 7s in them. I just liked the way it looked. It was the easiest number to write besides the number 1. Then she said I could pick 7 cards. I would point to a card, and she would slide it out. Her fingers looked like a real skeleton. You know, like the ones you see on Halloween. I could see the detail of her finger bones through her skin. I found myself staring at her finger bones more than the cards I picked. When it was over, she said, "Now pick one more so we can complete the circle." So I did. She made a small cross with 4 cards, and 4 cards that went straight across. She started on my left with the cross stack and flipped a card. The first card had a woman sitting down with a cross on her chest. It looked like the Virgin Mary. The old lady said, "You will have a life with many people attracted to you. Be careful. It will be hard to choose. You will be very tempted. You will love many people." I raised an eyebrow, and being that I had officially been invited to participate, I no longer wanted to be silent, so I replied, "No, ma'am. I will love one person and get married and be happy." She laughed, which was a little disturbing to me because I did not know witches were capable of laughing. I officially determined that the lady was a witch. She had a black pot cooking something, and it ain't food. The second card had a king sitting down. She said, "You have a very strong mind, child, and you will do great things, but it will cost you love. You will always choose your mind to make money over your heart. Your heart will hurt many times, and each time you hurt, you will make great things happen." Okay, now the lady was confusing me. "You just said I will love many people. Now you say I will have no love?" The old lady said, "When you get older, you will see there are many ways to love." I found myself hanging on her every word while I stared at the pictures. I still had no idea what she was saying. The third card turned over was a sitting devil. I immediately went back to a correct posture, no longer interested in hovering over the cards. She said, "Child, when you get older, your health will face many challenges. The devil is a symbol of bondage, but like all of us, we do not have to be at the mercy of the devil. Your fears will make your choices, and your choices will make your hell. I remember staring at that devil card and thinking, this is not fun anymore, telling me that I am responsible to making my own hell. But it is true how that imagery has never left my mind. If not for the devil card, I may have never remembered this event at all. The last card was a sitting king holding a sword. Boy, these people like to sit down, I thought. The old lady told me that when I grow up and go to work, I would make choices to do the right thing, the just thing, and it would always cost me stability. Well, I do not know what stability means, nor did I know what depressing means either, but I sure was feeling like I picked the wrong cards. So I asked, where are the cards that say I'm going to get a chocolate-dipped ice cream cone from Dairy Queen? My mother squeezed my leg under the table, and I immediately said without hesitation, I'm sorry, hoping she would stop. It was hard to be excited now, all this confusing stuff. I remember thinking, I do not want to play anymore. My mama already grabbed my leg, and I knew that was her way of saying shut your mouth. So does this mean I'm not allowed to talk anymore, I thought. The old lady continued to the horizontal line of cards. The first one was a king holding a cup. The second, a man upside down. The third, an angel with a lion. The last was a skeleton. Funny how the death and the devil card are so scary looking. Her finger bone pointed to the first card, and she said, you are both male and female. This means you are both compassion and love. Then her finger lifted up and dropped down on the next. You have a crossroad, and it will be the most important decision you make in your life. No one will help you, and you will sit here waiting for many years. Once again, the bone finger moves to the big kitty card. You will conquer your fears, child. Then the bone finger pointed to the last card. With no big surprise, she said, you will die. With a pause, she continued, you will die in your mid-30s. I had to say something now because I did not know what mid-30s means. So I said, what number is that? That sounds old. My Joan is that old. I knew the number 3 and 0, but it had no real meaning to me, and it did sound so old. So I was no longer scared about the death card. I figured about the time I would be old and should be ready to die. Then she took a piece of paper and she wrote down 5 letters. She handed them to me. She said, each letter is the first initial to the person you will fall in love with. I remember looking down and seeing 5 letters, meaning 5 people. I had to reply, you said I would fall in love with many people. She laughed a second time and responded, I said you will love many people and many ways to love. How will I know which people? I asked. She said, you are not supposed to know. It will just happen. Her bone finger stabbed the paper over and over. You will fall in love with these 5. Now, keep looking at the cards, child, and remember everything I be telling you, she said. She got up, then dipped a cup in the pot over the fire. I remember scooting over closer to Mama. Then she went to her room. I looked at Mama, her face flat with no expression, her lips tight, as she was looking forward at the wall. I wondered what her card said. She must have had a few devils, I thought. I remember she did not provide comfort to the things the old lady said to me, nor do I remember feeling like I needed her to comfort me. I was glad she stopped grabbing my leg, and if I was lucky, I might get out of this without her being mad at me. I remember having what I thought was love for my mama, but I do not remember having what I saw other children have. I guess my mama loved me. She made me food. I got presents at Christmas time. Then the old lady returned with a small, old doll, then handed it to my mama. I could hear more being said, but I was too busy staring at that doll. It was not an attractive doll, and I really hoped that my mama did not plan on giving it to me, 'cause it sure was ugly. But maybe the lady was too poor to give my mama a new doll, I thought. We got up to leave, and my mama reached in her purse and gave the old lady a lot of paper money. I too had a lot of money. I had over 500 pennies at home. I could buy bubble gum out of the machines at the gas station. Every time we stopped for gas, I would buy 2 or 3, shove them in my mouth, and chew them at the same time. I was rich, I thought. But I do not think I remember ever seeing that much paper money at one time being given away. When we got in the car, I remember the old shack appeared to be very small once again. The ride home was shorter than getting there. Mama said nothing, just stared out the window. At some point, I had dropped that piece of paper on the floor, and she yelled at me, "Pick it up, right this instant." I reached down and grabbed the paper with a quick, "Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry, Mama." She was breathing deeply now, then said, "My mama used to see this lady when she was young. She wrote down on paper who my mother would end up with. When I saw her as a girl, she told me my future. When I was a teenager, I went back to her and she wrote down who I would be with." I asked, "Really, Mama? The future? Did it come true?" My mama's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. Her jaw clamped down. Looking sternly ahead and through her teeth, she said, "Yeah, yes it did." I remember thinking, wow. I said, "That is great news, Mama." She turned and looked at me like a snake ready to strike and yelled, "No, no it is not." I turned forward, looking at the dashboard and acting like I could really see over it, then out my window. I wanted to cry, but I did not. She later said, "Do not forget anything you heard today. This old lady knows the future, and she has been right about everything." I looked down at the paper in my hand. Softly, I read out the letters. N R S D J.